Hey guys, Stefan here from Civils.ai, and we've been doing AI in construction for almost 3 years now, since before even ChatGPT was released. And I wanted to put together a video which is 10 of the things that we've learned or that we've discovered along the way of building Civils.ai. This was a bit of an activity for myself just to try and think about what's been happening and where the industry is, and also I just thought it'd be interesting to share with you guys. So these slides are quite scrappy, but the ideas are all things which I've thought about a lot and I just want to share. So I'm going to talk you through these 10 different things in no real particular order. So one of the number one things we learned whilst building Civils.ai, which I think you should think about with any new innovation or technology, is it replacing an existing tool? So in this slide, what I'm showing is just a screenshot from AutoCAD. So AutoCAD is a traditional tool. Even if you've not fully used it before, you're probably quite familiar if you work in construction with its basic features and what it's used for in terms of creating drawings or even 3D models, and its basic functions of creating like polygons, extruding objects. So you understand this, right? Let's say you have a bunch of licenses for AutoCAD and they're coming up for renewal at the end of the year. You'd be in the market, let's say, for a new CAD software. Chances are you might just renew with AutoCAD, but you know once that license expires that you are going to need some either AutoCAD or an alternative and what sort of features you need from it. This is quite different to doing some AI tool. So from our experience of building Civils.ai, we're creating a kind of new space. There's not a tool which already exists. So we're having to do a lot of education, showing people, okay, so this is how you're working today, but there's actually this new tool that we've built which can help you with part of that work. So let's take this example, which is for CAD takeoffs. So traditional processes, you need to use on-screen measuring software like Bluebeam, or even measuring it by hand, and needing to measure lengths off the drawings, lengths, floor areas, counting objects. So all of this you need in order to create your bill of quantities, estimate the total number of quantities and different materials you need on the project. So this is done manually. And so with Civils.ai, we've built a tool in order to create this bill of quantities or the initial takeoff from just natural language prompting. So you can type in what you want and we'll pull the information off the drawings. So this tool doesn't exist as it is today. No one has really a tool for doing these natural language CAD takeoffs. So we're coming along with saying, hey, we can do this for you, but they've never had a tool to automate that before in the past. It's always been manual. So you have to just sort of educate and show this is a new tool that you've never had before and this is what it can do for you. So for us, we explain it with slides like this, showing, you can upload drawings, type in what you want, extract data into Excel. But we have to explain a lot about limitations, how to write prompts, like prompt engineering, how to speak and communicate with AI through natural language. So we have to explain lots of this and help to explain to even the management level who might not be using the tool themselves what kind of savings this can deliver for their office. So a lot of education. So number one thing is we've had to do lots and lots of not just like selling software or building software, but also like explaining how it can complement what you're already using. That's been one of the hardest things. Number two is, okay, so this slide is called Haters Gonna Hate. And I've tried to do a comparison between what people were saying or the general atmosphere in 2023 and compare it to now. So I've done this based on Reddit posts because I use Reddit quite often, and I've tried to show how, people initially didn't really know what to think about AI. Is my take. When ChatGPT was released, a lot of people, I saw a lot of posts like this, someone saying, is anyone using tools? Kind of an innocent question, saying, what are people using? And then, the response is just very, very skeptical. Like, why would they use any AI tools? There are thousands of variables on every job. Just instant dismissal of the concept of any kind of innovation. the thing you have to remember about AI is it's not actually intelligent. These kinds of comments are just so dismissive and based on very little or basically nothing. It's just their like gut feeling, is my opinion. So the general thing 2 years ago was just people thinking that AI wouldn't make any difference to them or that it would completely fail in the industry. But if we fast forward to 2025 today, it's quite interesting if you contrast the comments. So 2025 is, you can just see that people have a much better understanding of what it can do and can't do. So, someone asking, I think this was about using it for calculations, things like that as well. And saying AI is not being used for my calculations, but it's definitely being used for summarizing reports for me. And then a positive response to this comment. So you see, people have already started to figure out what it can and can't be used for. Saying again, like, don't use it for calculations. I completely agree with this right now. I don't think it's great to use for calculations at all. Don't blindly trust AI, another great comment. But again, you actually see that there are still, so this slide is basically haters gonna hate, because there are still lots of people who are so dismissive. Like this comment, for example, the AI that exists has almost zero use in anything I do. Even for reports, its grammar and repetitiveness isn't even presentable to use. So I would say that this comment is basically someone who is probably using like the free version of ChatGPT and has used it a couple of times and decided, because it made like one error and it needed correcting, that it's like not useful for them. So I think that this person's basically gonna fall behind in the future and is not someone to listen to or take any advice from on this subject. So I think that it's very interesting, even though there is a level of kind of increased awareness and people who know what is good for and what is not good for right now, there's still haters who are going to hate. So I think if you're someone who's like championing AI in the industry, you have to be aware that there are going to be a lot of people who just take your good intentions and sort of don't listen, and they're going to hate. So number 2 is haters going to hate in the construction industry. But on the other hand, you have, on, I'd say, the other end of the spectrum, which is equally destructive, which is the AI hype, which is people saying, you're using ChatGPT wrong. Here's how to be ahead of 99% of other ChatGPT users. And then a kind of their article or their link to their course. Or people saying, I've saved $4.5 million in, some sort of flow chart that they created for a company with their AI advisory. And I think that both of these are kind of harmful to the industry, because what you're doing is you're creating too much expectation. You're creating, like, pushing the bar too far out. And then what you do is you create too much expectation, and so many people will be disappointed. And then when you go to them, which is something very narrow, something that works for a certain use case, and like you educated people well enough on that, and it really delivers for them, they'll be dismissive of that initially, because you've gone and you've created too much expectation of what it can do and what it can't do. So I also think AI hype is very destructive for the industry. That said, there is a lot of great content that's being created in information. So something that I quite like is these breakdowns of tools for certain tasks. So I really feel that they call it vertical AI, which is tools for more narrow tasks, is where AI is really going to excel in the future. So that will be an AI for a particular task on the project, which is quite narrowly focused. So take Civils.ai, for example. We're very focused on the takeoffs. So taking off information from drawings, taking off from tables and specifications or geotechnical reports. Like, we're quite focused on just the data takeoff part. But that said, there are other tools for, site. Let's take this other example: site video analytics. So you have CCTV cameras on site. They create AI models which detect things like unsafe incidents, problems on the site. Very vertical AI for one particular thing. I think this is where this is where AI will dominate in the future in vertical use cases. So I quite like these charts that get created, which show you where people are becoming specialized. So when someone asks, what's the difference between you and ChatGPT? You have 1,000 reasons to show them. Another thing is very important is checking the results of AI. So you'll see here on the left, you see this so often now on LinkedIn posts or generally on the internet. It's a bunch of AI generated slop where people don't actually rewrite any of their messages. So you see something like this. Someone's posted a post above. Fantastic insight shared here. Leveraging ChatGPT's AI for optimizing resumes is a game changer in today's competitive job market. You can normally tell AI generated content because they leave these hyphens in. And they use too many hyphens, like that most people don't use. I am forgiving of people using just copy and paste results if it's not in their own language. So I'll always be forgiving of that. But I think when we get job applications through, or people are trying to contact us, and you can see it's just copied and pasted from ChatGPT, it's really not a good signal. So I feel you should always check the results coming out from the AI and not just copy and paste. And you should sort of de-AI whatever's being created from ChatGPT before you send it out to someone. Another thing that you'll see is AI does make mistakes quite frequently, and you do need to go back and check the results. It's good for an initial first pass or a kind of feasibility study or the first draft, but you still need to put in a bit of work to verify and check. So an example here is ChatGPT 4.0 and 3.5 and all the ones before. There was this error with how many R's are there in the word strawberry? There are 2 R's in the word strawberry. Okay, there are in fact 3 R's in the word strawberry, but because of large language models and the way they are built and trained, it's not very easy for them to do this task, this sort of numerical reasoning task. They're just good at predicting tokens. Then the most likely next tokens being generated in a sentence. So it struggles very much with these tasks, and it struggled for a long time with this. But ChatGPT 5 was, huge because it could suddenly solve this strawberry problem. Or so we thought, but in fact, people straight away started testing it with this, and it was actually working for the word strawberry. It was getting it right. But then people just decided to start putting in more R's into the word strawberry and see, okay, is this actually really working, or have they just done some kind of middle layer filtering or something in there? And yeah, what you found is that it then actually still was wrong. It still makes mistakes. So you see that you can't always trust the results of AI, even the latest, most hyped up models which are backed by trillions of dollars of investment. They still make mistakes. So important to still check. And this is a very hot topic that I see coming up often on social media and LinkedIn, is people saying am I really gonna lose my job to AI if I don't start using AI? Is it really gonna happen? And I don't think you will. Even as an AI startup founder, what I think that will happen is actually it's this case of if you imagine your grandparents or some elderly friends you might have, which decided, not when the internet was just emerging in its early days, decided, I've lived for so long, why do I need to learn about the internet? Why do I need to go online and get this new broadband or dial-up as it was? Why do I need that? And, chances are completely fine. They haven't ever needed to get internet. But when it comes to some things like banking, for example, and you have your online banking account, you just want to check what your balance is, you just go on, or even on your mobile app, and you just check it. You check a certain transaction has gone through, you change some information, your address. You don't need to go to the branch. That saves you a lot of time. If all those things add up, you're doing everything paper-based, you needed to go into the office, or the branch, all that time adds up a lot, and it's a lot of traveling. Whereas when you're online, you just sit there, you can do all that in minutes, whereas it used to take you hours. So this is one this is the way that AI will pan out for many of us, I believe, which is that you're not going to lose your job, but you're just going to become kind of reliant on others to help you deliver the work in a more efficient way. Which is, you might have a more junior person in the team or someone who's like the AI wizard, and then you'll try and like pass off these sorts of complicated or time-consuming jobs to the people who do have the AI skills. And in a way, you'll be handing some of your kind of power or your that responsibilities that you had to someone who can actually do it much more efficiently. So chances are you won't lose your job, but you'll become kind of less relevant. Number 7 is, in fact, AI is just a huge mystery right now in terms of its future potential. On some cases where I was saying there about needing to check the results and it making mistakes, there are other parts where it's really making breakthroughs. So, for example, frontier maths problems, there's also some cool names for some of these tests, like humanity's last puzzle or humanity's last problem, something like that, which is a set of different challenges which is very hard to train AI for. So in this case, you have these random puzzles which appear on the screen, and these vision intelligence, visual language models have to try and solve the problem. So in this case, you give it an example input, an example output, and you have. So in this case, you see there's these light blue squares, and this example output is you're filling in this missing blank square, this L within this L to form a square. Then you're passing it this test input, and you're asking the AI, okay, looking at this example on the left, what's the solution to this? And the correct answer would be filling in the dark blue squares into these missing gaps. So these kinds of problems are quite hard to train AI for, because you can pass it a bunch of different patterns or different sequences. This is one such example, but there are different types of patterns that get passed. It's very hard to train an AI for this. So on some fronts, the benchmark for what is artificial general intelligence or human-like intelligence, we're already reaching it, because according to some tests which we've devised to determine has AI reached artificial general intelligence, it's already almost there. So whether or not we'll hit that and go much beyond that human reasoning and intelligence, it's hard to really say. But a lot of people say GPT-5 hasn't lived up to expectations. So we'll see if something comes up in the future. There's a lot of interesting things happening in China and the US. So who knows when they're competing, what kind of interesting things will come out of the mix. And for us, 2025, so number 8 is 2025 was a really big turning point in adoption. We found personally ourselves that we have a lot more very serious trials, a lot more people coming to us who know exactly what they want from what we're doing, and they sit down with us and they say, okay, let's get started. We had less of that in 2024 and 2023. We had much more discovery, people saying, oh, this looks interesting, can you explain it to us? And then we had, out of that bunch of interest, maybe 20% of the people who actually went ahead and with us and took up a contract. But now we have a much higher success rate, because people have already tested different tools. They already know where ChatGPT is not really working for them and where we can fit in. So around drawing takeoffs, for example. But what we have seen is that this isn't the case so much with the EU. The EU, we found, is still in a state of skepticism generally, and has a lot more questions we have to answer before we start working with any company, whether it be about questions about what if this hallucinates, where's the legal responsibility going to lie? Is that going to be with us or with you? Whereas what we found with the US and Asia generally is that people will say, oh yeah, we can accept that this will be used for a first draft. We just need that information out of the documents and the drawings, and then we can work with it. And there's not these questions of legal responsibility, AI ethics. So what I've seen, and speaking with other startup founders, a lot in the EU, there's a lot of talking happening and a lot of people who are doing thought leadership, but there's not very much in terms of very solid implementation or people, really being early adopters in these types of solutions. Whether or not that will change in the future, it's hard to say, or whether or not there'll be even more regulation and more skepticism. I really hope that the EU goes the more acceleration way, but there is a risk it could decelerate further. Okay, and now learning about AI is very easy. We've created a course which you can use. I'll put the link in the description below so you can actually learn more about AI from us. It's a pre-recorded course. It's 7 modules long. There's also many other good resources online. YouTube is a great place to just learn about anything, right? So there's a lot of free content out there as well, but this is a kind of paid course which we created. And finally, it's pretty easy to get started using AI. So we have our application Civils.ai, which you can either request a trial from us to use it, or you can even just pay for a license yourself and get started. And Civils.ai can basically be used to estimate quantities from CAD drawings. It can be used to run searches on bid documents and specifications. And we can finally, we've basically created these different workflows for tasks. So you can upload documents. It's like a project repository. And we have workflows for the CAD takeoffs, running the checks and extracting technical data. So all quite focused on takeoffs and kind of bidding activities on the project. So that brings me to the end of my presentation and my 10 lessons that we've learned so far. So I hope this was kind of interesting to you. And if you're also working on innovation, I hope it's like it resonates and that some of these lessons we've learned, you don't feel alone in some of these challenges, like dealing with skepticism or dealing with, comments. I hope we're aligned on that. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and do reach out to us if you're interested in a trial. Thank you very much. Bye bye.